Hi class, welcome to Organizational Behavior. We're going to start with the Robbins book this week. So I want to talk about what exactly we mean when we're talking about organizational behavior. So Robbins talks about interpersonal skills, and interpersonal skills simply mean that our ability to get along with people. If we are able to work with people, we're going to have greater effectiveness, lower turnover, better financial performance. And that sounds great, but it's almost missing the point. The most important part of this is, look, people are made in the image of God, right? And if you have hopes and dreams and aspirations and you're called to something, so are the people that work for you. Now, my assumption is that you're in a management position or you will be in a management position. So I'm going to talk to you as if that's the case, right? You're responsible for other human beings. This is quite a challenge and a calling, right? The things that you do have an effect on their lives, and you want to think through that as you manage. Now, let's define our terms. Manager is someone who gets things done through other people in an organization. And that sounds mercenary, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, you can get things done through people in a very mean way by commanding and controlling and compelling them to act, or by eliciting greatness from them, helping them understand what needs to be done, helping them grow, helping them become more. Okay? That's the role of a manager or an effective manager. Organization is two or more people that function together in some way in order to achieve a common goal. Okay, and an organization, you want to make sure that there aren't, factions pulling this way while other factions are pulling this way. If you're at cross purposes, you're not going to be very successful, all things being equal. And then management consists of things like planning, leading, organizing, and controlling. That's standard management kind of compartmentalization of what it is that you're going to be doing in an organization. We'll talk about that more as we go on. There are roles that you're going to play as a manager, things like a figurehead, a leader, liaison, monitor, disseminator, spokesman, entrepreneur, and you're going to wear various hats at different times. And we'll talk about this more as we get into further chapters on management as we move through the book. As we move through this book, by the way, you're going to understand you're going to hear some things that are very similar to what you've heard in other classes, but it'll come from a different angle, and we'll talk about that in a moment. There are also management skills. Management skills are, for example, things like technical skills. That's the ability to actually do a particular job. Now, one of the places where managers often get in trouble is that they think that they already know everything that they need to know because they held that job 25 years ago when they were just a young buck. But things change over time, right? So 25 years ago, you weren't even on the internet. So you can't know exactly how that job's working now. You have to be somewhat humble in order to understand that you might not know everything that you need to know. Then there are human skills. That's those interpersonal skills that are going to lead to organizational effectiveness. And finally, conceptual skills. That is, the higher that you go in the organization, the more that you need to be able to understand more complex things and how the organization is going to run and that kind of thing. I'll give you a simple illustration. Here, if you're McDonald's Corporation, that burger flipping employee that bags your food and gives it to you, they're going to need the most technical skills. And then if you're looking at overall McDonald's, their conquest of the world, I mean, they're everywhere except some parts of Africa, you're going to need a lot of conceptual skills. Regardless of where you are, if you're the burger flipper or the CEO or just a regular manager, you're going to need human skills all the way throughout. Now, human skills are interesting. There's this really interesting chart in chapter 1 where Robbins talks about the difference between what average managers do, what successful managers do, and what effective managers do. Now, he defines successful as those that move up the food chain, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're successful in the ways that we want to be successful. We want to be successful for leading people the right way, and growing them and helping them become more of what they should be and being a Christ-like example to others, right? Average managers tend to get in the weeds with traditional management issues, and then to some degree they also spend a lot of time in communication, but their largest contribution, or the time that they spent most, is on traditional management things. Successful managers are those that were going to spend most of their time networking. That's how they're advancing so successfully. Now, that's not what I'm prescribing for you or suggesting that's what you ought to be doing. Effective managers are those that are actually getting the job done in the proper way, helping people grow, being good managers, and they're going to spend a disproportionate amount of their time communicating. Now, I highlighted that because if you're going to be successful in your change project, communication is going to be key. More communication between you and your teammates is going to go a long way in getting you where you need to go. So spend the time communicating and be effective. Okay, so now we have major contributions to behavioral science that contributes to organizational behavior of things like psychology and sociology and social psychology or anthropology. All these kinds of things come together to form what is organizational behavior. So it's kind of like management, but from a psychological point of view. It's not so much what you should do as a manager, but why people react as they do. Why are people motivated or demotivated? And then we have a number of outcome variables, and the book talks about this and gives you a number of different charts. I'm not going to get into the charts. I'm going to highlight a few of the important issues, like task performance. Task performance simply means the effectiveness and efficiency of doing your job. Okay, so are you effective? That means, are you doing the right things? And then efficient, are you doing those things well? Okay, and that's an individual level outcome. Then you have citizenship behavior. Now, citizenship behavior means that people are actually wanting to do what they're supposed to do. Okay, and when they do, they want to take on additional tasks. So it's the discretionary behavior above and beyond an employee's formal job requirements. So you see this in some cases when employees are wearing the uniform of the organization, not when it's a uniform, but branding of the organization when they don't have to. Right? I mean, they're doing that. They're wearing the ball cap or the shirt above and beyond what they're required to do. Or when they volunteer for more assignments or pitch in and, hey, I need volunteer for such and such, and they're jumping in. Now, if they're not jumping in, don't make the mistake of thinking that they're lazy. They're not lazy. You're mismanaging somewhere because so there's a reciprocity, right? Let me give you an example. If somebody really loves you, cares about you, is looking out for your best interest, is really pouring themselves into you, what's your response? Is it to slap them back? Of course not. It's not to slap them back. What's your response? Your response is to try to reciprocate. Employees and organizations are the same way. If they feel trusted, they'll return trust. If they feel like you have their back, they will go to the nth degree to go through a wall for you to make sure that you get what you need to be successful. So if that's not happening, don't ask, why are the employees lazy? Ask, what are we maybe not doing, or what are we doing that's causing them to be demotivated? On management and leadership, Colin Powell talked about this. Good managers get 100%. Great leaders seek a higher ground. They take their followers to 110, 120, 150% of what anyone thought was possible. But this isn't by controlling them more effectively. This is by inspiring them, by causing them to long for what it is that we're going to go. We're going to go here, guys, and follow me. Leadership is going to be about inspiration. It's going to be about all the intangible things that you can't quantify about why people are inspired and motivated to do things. And we'll talk about that as we go through the course. If you don't do that, if you decide that you're going to be controlling in the process of managing, you're probably going to cause people to not be so motivated. And the ultimate degree of that is that they will withdraw, and they'll withdraw in a number of different ways. So withdrawal is a set of actions that causes employees to separate from themselves from the organization. So it could be just mental withdrawal. Fine, if you're going to be controlling of what I do, I'll do exactly what you say, but no more. That's one way that employees withdraw. And that's a sign that management is causing that. That's not a sign that they're bad employees. So please don't think that just because they're not doing things, it's them. More often than not, it's because the system is set up in such a way or management is causing that. The nth degree of that is that they're going to simply separate from the organization and go elsewhere if they have the opportunity. So if you see that, you want to check what's going on in the organization. What is there something that we're doing that's causing that? Fear versus trust. Colin Powell again. I do not like to see an atmosphere of fear in an organization. I've never known any leader who got the best out of his people that way. And that's true. Nobody is going, I really love this manager because they cause me to tremble and wonder whether I'm going to lose my job. Nobody's like that. You're not like that. I'm not like that. Nobody's like that. So what you should be doing is focusing on how do you inspire? How do you help them meet their goals or be motivated to accomplish what they already want to accomplish, as unless you're stifling them or throttling that because they want to do this. Outcome variables. There's group level outcomes like group cohesion. So you can tell if you have teams in your organization that are really cranking it out, they're really cohesive. That's a feather in your cap. It's not just that they're doing something. So group cohesion is group members, members of a group support and validate one another's group work. If they're stabbing each other in the back, I would wonder what you're doing as a manager to cause that. But if they're really working together, you're probably doing something right. It doesn't just happen by accident. Group functioning is the quantity and quality of a group's output. And then organizational outcomes, so there's individual level, group level, and organizational level, becomes this productivity that we're all seeking. It's the brass ring. Organization achieves its goals by transforming inputs into outputs at the lowest cost. And while we think about lowest cost being, let's just, throttle the system or make sure that we're being as cheap as possible, that's often not it. Often the lowest cost is understanding your people and helping them get into the right places and then helping them get where they need to be. And then they'll take off on their own. Anything that we do to get in the way of that reduces efficiency, and we have to be really, really careful about it. Okay, organizational survival is finally the organization is able to exist and grow over the long term. And if you do these things right, you'll be just fine. If you do these things wrong, well, then you're going to have some problems, and you'll see those problems around you. And over the course of the semester, you'll start to see it as we talk more about these variables. And now I understand that people are complicated. They're not like spreadsheets. Spreadsheets don't talk back. People you don't always understand. Even if you're trying to do right, they don't necessarily give you the benefit of the doubt. There's this great meme that said trying to understand the behavior of some people is like trying to smell the color of color 9. They can be so confounding sometimes, but you have to work through people as a manager. So just decide that you're going to try to learn as much as you can of how you can empower and encourage people to be the best that they can be as we go through this course. One last tip, I want you to think through as we go through this course, just highlight, make notes, read, but if you don't read, if you rely on my videos, that's not going to get you enough. I'm trying to highlight certain things. You need to read through the whole book in order to do well on the tests as we go through. And I also want you to think in terms of applying everything that we're talking about right now to your change project as well as to work. Thanks for your time. We'll come back in the next video and talk about Chapter 2.